What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Billy Liucci.
And I'm Amanda Atwell.
And this is episode 40 / week 40, whatever we're calling it. Episode 40 of
Moving Goalposts. That's a lot of episodes.
I don't know if you're going to move them this week because you try your damnedest not to, but I know who sure as hell is. And it's a lot of the fans listening that don't wear maroon and white, wear burnt orange. So this will be a fun one this week. Let's have some fun. We've been waiting for this baseball series. Let's start, though, by shouting out La Casa Tequila, our proud sponsor. I did, in fact, consume La Casa this weekend. Had people try.
I did as well. I made a very good margarita.
What did you make? Because you make them, I drink them.
A blood orange reposado margarita. I did. It was about like a lime, half of a blood orange, then agave syrup, tequila, a little bit of triple sec. I didn't really do much triple sec because I had the orange in there as it was, and a lot of ice, and then I blended it. So it was like a frozen frothy margarita. It was very good. You can ask Peyton. I made these while we watched the game on Saturday.
See, and you could have sent me that recipe. I had company in town as well coming from around the SEC. They had a blast in College Station. I had some little burners telling me that you can't be out in College Station over 40. I had to inform them that there's about 1 million people that do that. It's called coming in town for games. We had a blast.
There's only so many bars in College Station, and I feel like they're all concentrated in one area. So
let me tell you something.
You're not supposed to go out.
Let me tell you something.
Adult.
No one's gatekeeping the bars in this town. And anybody that tweeted that, I would challenge them to keep me out because they'd probably end up getting themselves banned for life.
I feel like that's like similar to like different bars in Austin. So like, you're going to have UT kids that go to West 6, and you're going to have adults that go to West 6.
Yeah.
But there's bars that have a higher population of UT kids, and there's bars that are an older crowd, and I'm sure it's the same in College Station.
For sure.
Like Uford's is like all UT kids, and then you go down the street, and I'm sure you can find a bar that's more adults and bachelorette trips.
Absolutely, and that's how kind of College Station is. They're the bars that it's just this total mix of like students and parents, and there's a sorority parent weekend or a fraternity, or if it's an alumni weekend, or it's a Letterman's weekend next weekend, or graduation. There's all big sporting events like this weekend. There's always, this weekend was Ring Week too, so it was probably as old a crowd as you're going to get in College Station. So fun couple weeks between that baseball series and then coming up the spring game, and we'll talk about all of those. But yeah, definitely consume some La Casa, and I think it'll be a big weekend for La Casa between that and this coming weekend. I know I'm going to dinner Friday with our girl Casey. Casey Smith's coming in for the spring game. Almost was going to have John Gruden there with us, which I think would have been a fascinating dinner to be at. Was really looking forward to it. He had a prior commitment at a coaching clinic, so now not coming. But Casey will be more than enough, and I'm sure, again, La Casa Tequila to celebrate with your friends, or your tailgating, or your, like you said, your game watching activities. So let's dive in, Amanda. Speaking of game watching, so we get to Bluebell Park. This is the showdown that everyone's been waiting for what? Like realistically, like 2 years, because the series was in Austin last year. The return.
Everyone is in Aggies. Have been waiting for this.
No, I think Texas fans have been. That was an exciting build-up.
Texas fans got their matchup last year. With
but no.
They've been in. I don't know what you're referring to as they've been waiting for it.
You don't think the Longhorn fans had been anticipating this series, like to watch and be at?
Are anticipating this series?
Yeah.
You anticipate the series every season, but I think for Longhorn fans, you anticipated it just as much as you anticipated A&M coming to Austin last year. I don't think there was a disproportionate amount of, not saying there was no anticipation. It's a rivalry. They're always going to have some level of anticipation. I just think it meant more to Aggies because he's returning to Aggie land, but I don't think that translated to Texas fans. They anticipated as much as they would any rivalry game, which is a lot, but.
I was about to say, respectfully disagree there. I do agree it meant more for Aggies, for sure. Like, with that, you're spot on there, without question.
Well, me as a Longhorn, it meant as much as last year went. Like, it's one you anticipate that's a highly, like, I mean, you circle it on your calendar every year, but
I get it.
Obviously, it's going to be a little bit harder this year than it was last year because you don't have the home field advantage.
Well, and it was just the theater of it. It's just the storylines, all the popcorn emojis and the anticipation, and he's coming back. It's the first time. The way he was greeted, it's the loudest. And it was just like we talked about. You and I both agreed this was not going to be like a Texas Tech thing. I haven't heard of one fight or confrontation in the stands. There was nothing.
I've seen some posts that I just don't think are real.
Yeah,
I've seen some of the posts shared that were posted in TexAgs of like, my grandma got shoved to the ground or something.
That's a small stadium. Nothing happened.
Like, this is written by AI and not real.
People are lying, and I talk every Longhorn I know. They'd say, yeah, because some people walk by and they'll make comments as they walk by, but they were like, it was fine, it was great. And that Friday night game was epic. It was awesome game, 9-8, back and forth, one team answering after the other. The booing at you got to understand, like, A&M hisses. And it pisses me off. I've never liked the hissing. It's not intimidating to get hissed at.
Honestly didn't know A&M hissed until I went to a game. The only game I've been to at Kyle Field, it was 2020 season, so odd year. And I discovered that A&M hissed. And the shit I gave my Aggie boyfriend at the time was unmatched.
You're like, what are you doing? I'm hissing.
And he was like, I don't like it either.
I don't. And here's my thing. It's a yell.
A grown man hissing will never be like a grown man hissing. I just have to laugh. That will never be an intimidating thing. Maybe the college kids, they can get away with it a little bit more, but a grown man hissing, a bit odd.
I'm with you. Like, it doesn't resonate down onto the opposition to where it's like, wow, this is loud, this is deafening.
Yeah, it's not as loud either, which I feel like is a point if you want it to be intimidating.
And other teams just go like this. Like, I know they do because I've talked to other athletes that have played here, and they're like, what is that thing y'all do with the hiss? They're literally looking at each other like, what are they? It's cool.
Yeah, it's a lesser known Aggie tradition, I feel like. So when it happens, people are like, what's going on?
I think it's cool for the one yell that ends with the hiss. Like, when they do that actual yell and that's fine. But like, if you're pissed about,
I didn't know there was an associated yell either.
Yeah, which that's fine. Like, it's kind of, let's give them a horse, But if it's in the game and you're trying to intimidate a coach, a batter, a pitcher, officials make a bad call, boo. So maybe this series,
I want to hear your hiss, Billy. Give me your best hiss.
Okay, it's like they do this, and it's like, like, how's that? Or you could go boo. Like, which ones? I can't.
I have a cat that could teach you how to hiss pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
You have to do something really bad to piss Nacho off enough to hiss. He's not quite. I think I've maybe heard him hiss like once in his life.
Yeah, the hissing is not it for me. So if there's one big takeaway from this weekend, Aggies finally learned how to truly boo. And that is the one thing they can thank him for. But really what they really wanted to do was get payback. Because at the end of the day, Texas did sweep A&M last year. And as much as I know Texas wanted to get out there and throw Volantis on Sunday and try to win Game 3, you can bet your ass the Aggies wanted that game in the worst way too, because they wanted the chance to go out there and like fully return the favor. It's a shame they didn't get to play yesterday.
Out the asterisk next to it of didn't play full series.
Yeah, but man, I'll tell you what. Yeah, and
it's a win regardless, so that part doesn't really matter. But
and thank goodness for the Aggies that we won the 2.
What if it was a 1-1 split?
That would have been. I didn't even think about that till just now. Could you imagine?
That would be crazy.
It's like,
I kind of wish it. I do wish it happened, obviously, because I wish Texas won one game. But like, I also just wish it happened for the parody of like, what do we do now?
All of that, and then it's like womp womp. Like
maybe like score differential. I don't like.
Look, I think that the way it worked out actually was perfect for the Aggies because they just this week moved their Sunday starter, Aiden Sims, who is pitching really well. They moved him from Sunday. He's been their best starting pitcher, and they moved him this week from Sunday to Saturday.
Yeah, maybe Texas should do that.
Yeah, I mean, that really paid off when you see that game got – because it would have been a shame not to be able to throw him, which is what happened with Texas. So, but the Aggies brought it, Amanda. They answered every Texas. They were just trading haymakers Friday night, and then Saturday.
That was a good game, despite the outcome. That was a more fun one to watch. The one on Saturday, I feel like, was just frustrating. I mean, obviously, not Texas pitching staff was not put in a great position with the start of the game, going into a rain delay so early after having to pitch an inning. I dated a pitcher all through college. I know how that can mess up their rotation. And then, I mean, we've seen the retweet of the throw that should have been a strike, and then A&M scores 6 runs afterwards. But at the end of the day, the game would have still been lost based on the score differential.
And A&M was raking that day at the plate, that at bat aside.
So
Texas
I just don't think Texas fans can point to that and say, like, oh, well, the umps were on A&M's side. Like, yeah, it sucks, and you wish that they got the call right. But when you look at the end score, A&M take out those 6 runs, A&M still wins the game. So it definitely changed the momentum of the game, but I think A&M had momentum regardless. Obviously, they were able to respond very well even when Texas struck back. So I just don't really consider that enough of a factor to guarantee that Texas would have been able to come back. Their pitching was just so bad on Saturday as well. The bullpen had some real issues.
Yeah, and the A&M lineup was locked in. They were dialed in. Again, which is why I really wanted to see them go against an ace like Volantis, because I wanted to see. I was very curious. I think that was like a battle of strengths brewing on Sunday that I was really looking forward to seeing. Look, here's the deal. We're not going to know who's better till the end of the year. Right now, both their resumes look incredibly similar. A&M was the better team this weekend. Just like, that it is what it is. We won't know until regional, super, who advances further, right? But the Aggies, they were locked in, Amanda, and it was just one of those. It was kind of like that football game in Austin earlier this year. I mean, one team just got it going when they needed to, and that was that. And
I will say, you could probably find some bookmarks from your own fan base on this one of ones who were calling to fire early.
Trust me.
After last year of just, I don't know if we discussed this at all, but I said I think that's dramatic. It's a first-year head coach. You look at, Sark had an awful first year as a head coach. You have to give him time to adjust and build the program the way they want to. Still, jury's out on Early. He has to continue the success throughout the remainder of the season. But I think it goes to show you're beating a team that's as talented as Texas defiantly, then obviously you're doing something right.
Let me say something about Early. I'm more happy for him about this than I normally would be for any coach to get a win like this, because he had a job at Texas and he kind of puts it at risk to make a play for this job, right? That's a great job to be a hitting coach at a place like Texas, but he wanted this.
This job doesn't work out. I bet you he can go find a hitting job at a very good baseball. So why not take the opportunity to be a head coach in the SEC?
Because he didn't know he would. It was a pipe dream to get it, and he took the shot. He took the risk and said, "I'm going to try it." I give him so much credit, and he wanted it because he knew in his heart and in his mind that he could win here. And you're right. A lot of people on this side of things, it's fine to question it. It really is. And I'm sure, no matter how much he believes, there had to have been times last year where he was questioning, man, what am I doing? But some of the things that have been said and written, I thought, like you said, were way premature, and nobody realizes it.
after
Yeah.
whatever game
The Athletic article. Yeah.
posted that article after. Like, it's a similar thing. Like, why are we making such drastic judgments so early on into careers?
Yeah. And it was such a hard thing to do, right? To take over that team, preseason number one, never have been a head coach, and had just played for the national title. Oh, by the way, the guy that preceded you, that took you with him, is down the road leading a team that very quickly ascended to be, I think, number one, if not number one, number two. It was a rough season. But if you look at last year, and this is what I would say to Aggies or Longhorns or anybody around college baseball, going back to mid-season last year. In fact, I think I was with you and I think me, you, Grant. We went to that concert where my buddy put together that EDM show, which was back.
Breakaway. That actually, funny story about that. That was this past weekend as well.
Yeah.
And there was so much cloud cover in DFW that the sound traveled so like everywhere. There were people off of Mockingbird complaining about the noise. Breakaway in Fair Park. That's how. Like,
shout out Adam Lynn. Good job.
There were, I think, 11,000 calls to 911 to the police department, not knowing what was going on. Like, people could hear Sophie Tucker in their living rooms in Lakewood.
That's crazy.
Great.
Well,
anyways,
it was a year ago at this time that we did that, and which, by the way, was another weather day. It was freezing ass cold in the middle of April.
I wore a fur coat in April. And
So that was going on a year ago. A&M won 2 out of 3. They won a doubleheader that day against Tennessee. And we were shocked. You were keeping me updated because you had service. I was like, what is going on? Because they were doing they were 1-9, and then they won the next 2. From that point on, Amanda, Mike Early's Aggies, and they screwed it up last year against Missouri at home, right? That kept them out of the postseason. But they are counting the SEC tournament. They're like 21-16, I think, or 21-17 in SEC games, which, by the way, that probably gets you a regional host bid when you're that, few games above 500 in the SEC. And number 2, counting this weekend series win against Texas, they beat Texas, number 2. They beat Tennessee when they were 1 or 2. They beat Arkansas when they were 1 or 2. And they beat LSU, who won the national title when they were 1 or 2. 4 series wins in the last calendar year over teams ranked 1 or 2. Not games, series. They've quietly turned it around. It got a lot louder this weekend. I was happy for him. That, to me, was number 1 on my list, more so than revenge or any of that. But the rest of it made it pretty sweet, too. And I will say, it did remind me, because you were at this game, and a lot of Longhorns and Aggies were at both, it really did remind me of that atmosphere in Austin for that football game, where when I walked into that stadium that night in November, I was like, damn, man, they really want this one. They want to ruin A&M's undefeated season. This is not the DKR atmosphere I remember. And I think that's what you had at Bluebell.
And I had just been, before that game, I had just been to the Arkansas game. And there's certain sections of DKR that are much more rowdy than other sections. And primarily that's the cheaper seats. It's the corners of the stadium. It's not the one, and people call us tea sippers. It's the people that have the money that just always have the tickets and are sitting in the front row behind the visitors. That's where I was. I was during the Arkansas game, was behind the visitors bench, and the people around me were frustrating the shit out of me. They were quiet. It was annoying. And I mean, at the end, we were also beating Arkansas by a lot. So obviously it's not going to be the most rowdy game. And it didn't even feel like it was a rivalry game. But the A&M game was unlike any environment I've felt in DKR. Yeah. That being said, I did not go to Notre Dame when apparently that was insane. I did not go to the Alabama game in 2022, which Alabama players said was one of the loudest environments they have ever been in, and that was an 11 a.m. kickoff.
Just talking to Longhorns, they had said that A&M game was the one. Even former players
around us were impressed. To say.
Well, so Bluebell Park was like that. It was electric. Like I said,
it came through on the broadcast.
Yeah, it was cinematic. You saw the ball 5, ball 6. They
I
started
had to
booing
pause the
slosh.
TV at one point because it was so annoying. The ball, like I had to pause the TV because the sound was just annoying me. And then fast forward when they got out of the jam.
By the way, I didn't much hear a peep from either one of y'all this week, and I just want it said.
It's not to talk shit when we're losing. It's not.
But I do want to say, how was I when we won?
You didn't really say a peep either, but I also hadn't really been responding all weekend.
It was pretty gracious, wasn't I?
Nice of you.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to hear. And okay, so look, now you got two teams.
I did say, I don't know if you saw the comment on somebody left on Twitter of like, you can take your victory lap now. And I said he might get calf cramps because it's been a while since he's been able to take one.
Yeah, because they said in the heels. Yeah, I saw that. Because they were telling you were going to get your heels ready for that one, and
I'm not taking any laps in heels right now.
You probably hurt yourself with the knee, but no. So to me, Amanda, like now we have after this weekend, then you look at the SEC standings, and both teams are 9-5. What I was trying to say a few weeks ago, we were both right. You said Texas was the best team in the SEC, and I think at the time you were correct. It was you or Georgia, and now it was near the top, at the top. Now both teams are near the top. They both sit one game behind Georgia, but there's a bunch of teams right behind them as well. So this SEC battle is going to be really interesting. But it's not really what matters, right? We all want a trophy, but what matters is the Aggies and Longhorns are both vying for top 8 seeds. Texas is comfortably, I think, inside of that right now. A&M just made a big push to get into the conversation. Let's just look. A&M's offense, Texas's pitching, starting pitching anyway, right? But what are your concerns for Texas and mine for A&M for them to get into that top 8 seed? Texas is going to host. A&M made a great move to host a regional, but to be a super regional host in a top 8 seed, what worries you about this Longhorn team? Is it the bullpen? Is it?
I think, the biggest thing is the bullpen.
Yeah.
The bullpen being able to throw strikes. Mm-hmm. I think that was the most glaring issue this weekend. That's just something you have to figure out if you want to go to Omaha and you're playing a bunch of games. Yep. You need a bullpen that can throw strikes and that you can rely on. So I think that's the main issue. Obviously, I mean, Texas is able to get the bats going when they really need to, most of the time. Yeah. But I think the bullpen, that's my main issue. And I don't know if that's something you can address mid-season, maybe fiddling with the rotation a little bit. But I think that's the biggest thing.
And by the way, Robbins with 4 bombs on the weekend
that was crazy. I'm like, can we have some people on base for this? But
and by the way, A&M finished second for him, and I'm like, golly, you talk about. Could you imagine having Grahovec, Sorrell, Hakopian, and him? It's almost like that would have been too much, but he was incredible this weekend. So was Gavin. So was Sorrell. I know I talked to some mutual Longhorns that we know, and they were like, pardon my French, but F Gavin Grahovec, F Caden Sorrell, let them go to the damn major leagues already. So, I mean, look, they had a chip on their shoulder. That whole stadium had a chip on its shoulder. The whole ballpark all weekend. It is what makes the rivalry fun. There was intensity. There was like a burning desire to, as they say, beat the hell out of TU. And they did beat the hell out of Texas, just like there was a burning desire at DKR to spoil A&M's perfect season. Yeah, this has been a fun year. I think there was more of a
burning desire for Texas to beat A&M in football this year.
Hell no.
Obviously, I think there was more of a burning desire for Texas because you were shit on all season. Yeah. After Arch had a really rough season, you're trying to recover to have any semblance of a chance in the college football playoff. Yeah. Nobody's picking you to win that game because Aggies are on a high, undefeated all season.
For sure.
And I think that's the reason the chip's on your shoulder a little bit. A&M's just been on a high all season, winning.
Oh, you mean in that game in particular?
Yes, I
agree. You're right. Yeah, I thought you meant baseball.
I mean, I think baseball, both years, A&M had more of a chip on their
Yeah.
shoulder. Obviously, Texas was able to still get it done last year.
Yeah.
But I think just based on the storyline, and I think that's going to stay the case. I think A&M's going to have more of a chip on their shoulder when it comes to playing Texas, as long as Schloss is the head coach.
I love it. Both sides, both sports we just talked about. And then basketball, A&M went into the Moody Center and beat Texas like a drum, and then Texas came back in second half, beat A&M like a drum at Reed, like with the both teams' tournament hopes. This is real rivalry stuff. You saw the softball a couple weeks ago. They went toe-to-toe and a really good 3-game series.
You know what pisses me off?
What?
And I see this a lot from Texas fans, and this pisses me off about Texas fans, is you see the ones that say A&M's not really a rival because you look at, and then they pull out the all-time football score.
Yeah.
No. It is your in-state rival. You are blessed to have one of the best rivalries in sports. You're blessed to have two of the best rivalries in sports, with Oklahoma and A&M. There are not many schools that can say the same, that they have two of that high caliber of a rivalry. When you see the emotions in these kinds of games, if you try to say it's not a rivalry, you're coping.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry. And you don't really like sports if you try to say it's not a rivalry.
Yeah.
Or I assume you haven't played sports, because I mean, I went to high school in Keller. I went to Keller Central. We played Keller. That was our rival. Keller generally beat the shit out of us because they were a much older, more established school from a wealthier area.
Okay.
It was still a rivalry. So,
yeah,
I just don't think you understand sports if you sit here and try to say this isn't a rivalry.
Well, let's talk about the rivalry.
People listen to this podcast because it's a rivalry.
There's a trophy with it. And I will admit, I had
a good segue into the trophy.
Yeah, it was. Good job. And I will admit, people will get a kick out of this on both sides. I did have an Aggie actually text me that, hey, can you call me? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll give him a call. He wanted me to potentially steal the trophy just for 30 minutes or an hour or so.
Are you able to steal the trophy?
Amanda, look, this is an insane request. Could you imagine me doing this?
Imagine there's just College Station jail records.
Or I get caught.
She arrested for theft.
They were basically like, surely at some point it'll be at y'all's office. And I'm like, okay, so if it is, you want me to take it or have somebody come over with a new plate. They were pissed because it says Texas versus Texas A&M on it. They noticed it when the Aggies were holding it up. And
what do you want it to do? I mean,
I wish I could. Could you even imagine?
That is technically alphabetical because there are more words in Texas A&M than there are in Texas.
It's like, I don't give two shits whose name's first, who's not. Like, I would never think about that. I would just be like, who won it? Who's winning it? That's it. Like, who wins the But I thought it was funny that
I don't even know whose name is first on the Texas OU. I mean, well, I take that. Well, I guess the little placard that the hat sits on, I don't know whose name is first on it. I don't care. I just want to win the hat.
So the Aggies, I think, need one more point. There's 4 competitions left. They've got it, and I think the Aggies are favored in 3 of the 4. I think, and not to say they've got it locked up, but it's close to there.
Left?
It's men and women's golf, men and women's track. That's it. So I think Aggies are favored in
men's golf, I would think.
Yes, they would be.
And A&M favored in the other 3?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And so, and so anyway, A&M's likely to win it. I think they need to, just from the standpoint of, I've always said this to you, Texas is an elite athletic department. They were in the Big 12. They are in the SEC. They were 30 years ago, 50. I mean, it just is what it is.
How many SEC titles Texas won last year?
Yeah.
They won more SEC titles than any other school.
So if you're, and that is factual, that is real, and if you're going to go against somebody in a competition, even if it's like me and you playing Pop-A-Shot in here, where we've got one now, but it's like you're going to try to win. If you're competing against someone, and especially if you put a trophy and you have a competition that thousands and hundreds of thousands of people follow and monitor, and it's like, yeah, and there is something that matters. And I know Aggies have ridiculed Texas fans for talking about it, celebrating it. A&M fans will do the same thing if they win it. There's a trophy at stake for a head-to-head competition, and in theory, it tells you, it's not perfect, but it basically tells you who's the better on-field athletic department for that given year.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a big
I'll never
deal.
ridicule an Aggie fan for celebrating Director's Cup overall. I mean, yeah, winning that trophy requires winning a whole lot more than the sports that you probably actually care about winning. I mean, most A&M fans would probably say they're happy at the end of the season if they won in football. And I mean, probably just in general, they're probably happy at the end of the season if they just won football. They could lose everything else and they still, like, most people in the SEC carry their emotional weight in football.
Right.
But I mean, the rest of the sports are important too. It's college athletics.
Another good segue, because let's visit that. Like a couple weeks ago, it might have been last week. I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was, does A&M have a Texas problem? I think it was after they lost in softball and the Longhorns went to that Sweet 16. And we talked a lot, and part of that was, and even I was kind of going, yeah, well, look, Texas is ranked number 1 or 2 in baseball. They were 2. The Aggies are sitting, on the fringe, right inside the top 25. That's going to be a tough series for A&M to win. We both agreed that the Aggies really needed that one when you look at the head-to-head in the Big Three, because it was a sweep last year, because it's 2-0 in football. Now that the Aggies won that series 2-0, and now that both baseball teams are really in a – Texas is still ranked a little higher, but they're in a very similar spot.
Yeah.
They're in a very similar spot, and it's not like Texas went to Omaha last year. They did bow out of their own regional. So baseball, even though it hasn't felt like that, it's pretty similar. Obviously, Texas, Schloss is more entrenched. Being new on that job early is still like they've got to finish this season out, right? We understand that. But they're in a similar spot. Aggies have a lot of momentum. Has nothing to do with Texas other than these 2 games, but they have a lot of momentum. Baseball, you both feel great about. Men's basketball was damn near a push. I give Texas credit for winning that extra game and advancing that extra round, but the seasons were very similar. They split. They both went to the tournament in year 1. By the way, both teams just got elite players from the Big 12. Texas went and got a great player from TCU, broke the Horned Frogs' hearts there. TCU's best player. A&M went and got a 24, 25-point-a-game scorer from Kansas State. So both Bucky and Sean Miller off to a really hot start in the portal. I see Miller kept Modest is coming back. People were wondering if he was going to be a pro. He's coming back. That was big for Texas. So both schools have a lot to be excited about in basketball too. Look, I don't think A&M has a Texas problem anymore. I think athletically, these schools are really, really leveled out here lately, and it's a good thing for both. Good thing we get to see stuff like what we saw here, like what we saw in Austin in softball a couple weeks ago. It's badass, and that is why Texas being in the SEC, there are reasons I was against it until it actually happened, and then you're like, okay, let's go. Let's have a rivalry again, because A&M didn't have one in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, you could call LSU a rivalry. It's kind of formed into somewhat rivalry, but it doesn't have the historical relevance that Texas does. And I mean, I proud to say I was never against Texas playing A&M again. I was very sad my senior year of high school when that was going to be our last time playing.
Oh, that was it. Wow.
But I don't think you can say, like, this conversation all started because somebody posted on Twitter that OU has a Texas problem.
That was me. That was me.
That was you? Yes. Somebody else posted it too, I think.
I've been saying that since y'all beat them. Like, it was, I forget what it was, basketball.
Couple years. But yeah, and I think there's a very clear argument for that. But with this, we did say that I think we needed to evaluate baseball. And now it's so even. I don't think you can say. I mean, if you would have to go down to the specific sport at this point. Does A&M have a Texas problem in baseball? No.
Yeah.
Does A&M have a Texas problem in basketball? No. Texas made it a little bit farther in the tournament, but you look at the head-to-head, even split. Does A&M have a Texas problem in football? You could say yes there. So far, sample size is small.
So I would tell you this, in my opinion.
But overall, I think you can say it's pretty even. It's been a good back and forth competition thus far.
For sure. On the football thing, and we have some notes on that. But to me, like, I would say no, they don't have a Texas problem in football. Now, hear me out. If they win at Kyle Field this year, you don't need to go 0-3 against, you don't need to go 0-3 against your arch rival where two of those.
The biggest thing is also because it's at Kyle Field.
Exactly. With two of,
if it was at DKR, if the series started out at DKR and this was the third game at DKR, might be a little bit different.
No,
I think need to take a deep look if it's another loss at Kyle Field.
Yeah, the Aggies need to win the game at Kyle Field this year, in my opinion. I think I said it a couple weeks ago. If they don't, then you better return to that playoff. And because if you do, you're probably one loss heading into the Texas game. And if you lose to them, it's going to be a really bitter taste. But you're still back in the playoff for the second time in a row and second time in 3 years. Your double-digit wins 2 years in a row. Your trajectory is still going on a very steep incline, even if you lost. But even then, it would be tough for a lot of people to swallow if A&M started out 0-3 with the return to the SEC. And, oh, by the way, they lost that last game in the Big 12. So, yeah, I mean, look.
There would be a lot of funny posters.
That we're not. I don't think we are going to entertain that at all. But then
me and Peyton have a shared photo album now on our phone of all of like memes. We have them for OU. We have them for A&M. We have just general Texas ones. We have videos. We have a photo response to every possible scenario these days. Even the sad scenarios. We have crying Longhorn with the rainbow over it. I want to die. Every scenario we could possibly have.
As long as there's none of your pictures. As long as there's none of your pictures of me in the memes. I am disappointed you weren't here this weekend, so I couldn't take a picture where I'm just going right at the end of it would have been good at the end of the one-run loss like you got me. The 9-8 game on Friday night would have been a perfect time. Although, Amanda, knowing you, and people can kind of know you on this, I would be half scared to do that because I think you'd maybe try to grab the phone and just launch it across onto the field or something. So I would have done it from Zoom.
You have seen me get in a actual altercation with somebody at a baseball game, and I was not the aggressor.
That is true. That is true. That lady was crazy.
It was a Longhorn fan. That woman was a psychopath. If you ever sees this, I want you to know how much of a psychopath you are. She didn't like I would love to see how she reacted at Bluebell this weekend because she didn't like the fact that me and my friend were using curse words.
Now, as good as the atmosphere was,
college sports environment, you're going to hear, if you want to bring.
I heard a lot of curse words.
And even then, her kids were teenagers. You can't tell me they haven't heard worse in high school than what we were saying at that game. So
I didn't think
that was.
Let's package this correctly. It's not like you were sitting there MFing the A&M players.
No, there were A&M.
It was more like a what the F?
Us.
What the F are we doing? It was like that. It was like so.
There were A&M fans behind us that were like, "What is this lady on?" Like
crazy.
They had no idea. They were completely fine, and it was mainly we were having casual conversation between each other and using curse words. So
let's dive into our spring football notes. We like to do these rapid fire. We're both coming up on spring games. I believe in this weekend, same day.
Open practice for Texas. They are not doing an official.
Oh, they're not doing a game? Okay. A&M's doing a game.
Actually, I'm kind of a fan of just seeing how many injuries Texas has sustained in the offseason in recent years. I mean, you have Kojo from last year. You have your running back injuries.
Yeah.
Just, I don't want to risk hurting anyone, especially with just like how teams are restructured to where you're going more in for higher dollar players and sacrificing a little bit of the lower level depth.
That is the mental chess match that coaches now play every year. Like you said, it's so much on the line, and you are now investing in them with a lot more than a scholarship.
The football season is longer, so you just really want to retain as many healthy players as you can.
And I think both teams, it sounds like, have been very healthy this spring. I mean, both of them actually. So,
Texas has to be careful, and I have notes about that in my.
So let's go. You want to start notes or me? It doesn't matter, but either or.
Start notes.
Go ahead. Longhorn notes.
Ian Jafar, the transfer from Arkansas.
The big man.
To be very much leveling up from last season, as well as just leveling up the physicality on the D-line overall. Khalid Lockett injured earlier this spring. He's off crutches. All signs point to him being able to return in the summer.
Okay.
So wide receiver, he caught a touchdown pass in the Cheez-It Bowl.
Yeah, he's a stud.
Looked really good. Running backs have been kept on ice in scrimmages. Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown. I think they're just PTSD from the CJ Baxters of the world, of just injuries and not wanting your star running back to sustain an injury before the season and be out for the entire year.
Yeah.
So respect that decision there. Saturday, Texas had a scrimmage. The notes say defense won the day, which I feel like is interesting because a lot of the chatter about Texas has been about the offense. Couple names mentioned: Alex January, Hero Canoe, both returners, and then freshman linebacker. I'm going to butcher this name.
Kosi Akpala.
Haven't heard it over a broadcast yet. Koseo. Say that again. Okpala.
Kosi Akpala.
Akpala. Okay,
yep.
That's hard.
Now, can I say something real quick about Texas? That I'm gonna be complimentary here. They have some. You mentioned Ian Gaffard, and I watched A&M play against him at Arkansas this past year. Man, Alex January, him, Hero Canoe, who A&M finished a tough second for a couple years ago. The Aggies wanted him. You guys Sark has built. There is some real size in there on the defensive interior, and it's been that way. It was especially that way with Collins and Broughton, and I'm forgetting somebody obvious there, but they've done a great job of putting like SEC, and scouts have told me that too, SEC bodies on the defensive interior, and that's something I think Elko and A&M are trying to get back. Get that because when he was here the first time, they had some massive dudes on the inside, and I think they really helped themselves out in the portal this offseason. But these dudes are giants.
I mentioned, I feel like I've mentioned this once or twice before, one of the benefits of Sark coming from being a coordinator at Alabama is he had the learning curve of knowing what it takes to win SEC and knowing what to prioritize when he's learning under the best in Nick Saban. So, I mean, not to say that Elko's lacking in that territory. I'm sure he's
he had it
as he goes, and
he had it at Duke. I mean, at A&M before. Remember, he was 4 years under Jimbo here, then went to Duke. So he, just like Sark, knew okay, if I ever get, Sark didn't know Texas, right? But he's like, if I ever get an SEC head job, I know exactly what I'm going to recruit. Same thing with
my main point is you're learning under Nick Saban, and I think we can both say there is no better college mind to learn about how to win in the SEC. So it's all in how you apply it, though. So
and you've
see if that results in a title or not.
And you've got some O-line notes.
Yes, Melvin Ciani standing out in scrimmages. So, like we said last week, Texas has locked in 4 starters, 3 returners from last year, and Melvin Ciani are addition through the transfer portal. So that should make Texas fans feel a lot better about the O-line going into this season. Of just like you're not still rotating through who's going to start in what role at this. For the starters, and you have a good level of competition for that 5th spot. And you've added, I think I had a note somewhere, I think they added something like 4 or 5 offensive line players in the transfer portal. Prior to last season, they added 0.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, they're still recruiting offensive line talent and developing it, but just the fact that you're adding players that have some level of experience, I think that'll be a polar opposite, or at least I'm crossing our fingers that it's a polar opposite, but you're also returning those 3 starters, which helps a lot.
I think Texas and Sark learned a lesson last year in terms of the portal of like, we're adjusting the way we do this.
I think you go from 11 transfer portal pickups to 20.
Yeah.
I think you learned, and like you're letting go 22 players, I think is how many they let go to the transfer portal. That's an entirely different mindset on attrition that they took over this year versus last year.
Yeah, also the offensive line. Like, just that specifically. It's like, okay, we're going to do a mix. We're going to get portal guys. We're going to keep guys we're developing. And I think Elko and them, because of what they're going through this year, they had the opportunity to see not just Texas, but other places and go, not going portal is not the answer, but you do have to keep your developmental guys too. So now I think A&M and Texas kind of have the exact same philosophy, and a lot of that probably had to do with how things went this past season. So going into the A&M notes, you're talking about injuries. Ashton Bethel-Roman's back out there. He had gotten banged up earlier after starting spring on a real high, or entering spring on a real high. KJ Edwards, the 5-star freshman running back that everybody's been excited to see, he's finally gotten out there. He had an injury that kept him out for a couple weeks to start. So those two, I think, are going to be big parts of the offense this year because they're so damn explosive and good. And so it's good to get them back out. Terry Bussey, I haven't checked, today, but Terry Bussey's been still out. But that's not. Elko has not commented on it because it's not one of those long-term injuries. So there's always speculation.
Or not?
Yeah, no, it's not. And it was kind of, both of these injuries were, I don't know why they were kind of presented as being more serious than they were. I
think there's just the lack of information aspect of it. Is like they say, like, oh, lower extremity injury, and they don't say anything further. And lower extremity injuries that can be a torn ACL or that can be a pulled hamstring.
Exactly.
It can be a variety of things with different. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And so to me, watching practice and stuff, the pass rush is really starting to catch my eye. Whether it's the portal guys, Anto Saka from Northwestern or Ryan Henderson out of San Diego State, the returnees like Marco Jones, I think he's a breakout guy this year. TJ Searcy, the defensive end. They've got some dudes that have shown some real twitch and flash in terms of getting to the quarterback. Aaron Gregory, I've talked about him a lot. I won't talk about him a whole lot more. Fans are going to see him in the spring game and be buzzing. The true freshman wide receiver. It's a crowded room. He is going to force his way onto the field and play because he's that good. He's special. He should have been a 5-star. And Bryce Perry Wright is a defensive lineman that I think some people are now starting to catch on that have been out there as well. I've been talking about him for weeks. I think he will play meaningful snaps on that D-line as a true freshman. He's kind of on that same path that Marco Jones was a year ago. So those are two, actually both out of the state of Georgia too. And I know Texas has done a bang-up job in the state too. It's weird to see how much success both the Aggies and Longhorns, Amanda, are having in the Peach State while Georgia's up. It's interesting. It's something that I'd probably talk about a little bit on TexAgs and do a little research on. It's a fascinating where these teams are just saying, hey, we're going to go recruit the state of Georgia, even though Kirby Smart's entrenched and winning basically 90% of his games there, but yet both schools have had a lot of success. So probably pissing our boy Kirby off a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, Kirby's had a lot of success. He's definitely had Texas's number, but he's struggled in the playoffs of late. So
2 years in a row. So Isaiah Horton and Wilkin Formby, the tackle and the wide receiver, the two transfers from Alabama, have both had really nice camps. Horton's starting to really show why he's such a weapon in that red zone, as Auburn learned last year when he had 3 short touchdown catches. But they both look like really, really good gets. And Jamarian Morrow, I heard, had a really nice scrimmage. And like you said, the defense seemed ahead in that scrimmage, much like Texas. That, for people that know, like, that's real common this time of year, especially because you're kind of building your O-line to kind of, we need to see everyone, and then once summer and fall camp roll around, we start to really hone in on what that starting 5 looks like.
Arch still isn't going at 100%, so I think that's automatically going to give your defense a little bit of an edge when you don't have your QB1 out there. But, I mean, I do think it's beneficial for KJ Lacey and Diabell to be getting reps. And then our other quarterback that we picked up, I cannot remember what his name is.
I've been hearing good reports out of y'all's camp on Diabell. So
getting his college legs under him.
Yep, and the Aggies, that you have Brady Hart going into year 2. I thought he had a good practice the other day. It's he and Helaman Kasuga are probably, but Brady, I think Brady's that guy that needs to continue to improve as QB2. You've got to, he's got to get there. They're in a similar boat. They both have the entrenched starter, the returning starter. They both have a second-year guy that they feel good about that was a high-level recruit, and they both have these highly touted freshmen in Bell and Kasuga. So anyway, that'll be those battles for the reps at quarterback in fall camp will be a lot more meaningful than they are now. So that was kind of those were kind of my notes. We had an off-season topic, speaking of offensive players, and we'll do defense next week. But I wanted to talk about both these teams have high aspirations this year, right? The highest aspirations. They want to advance in the playoffs. They want,
just like every year.
They've invested a ton of money. People are like, "Oh, Texas has gone all in this year. LSU's gone all in."
Every school has.
We're all going all in. Yeah, like it's all in all the time.
I got to go on a rant for a second. I'm so sick of this money conversation.
Yeah.
Every school is spending as much money as they physically can.
Right.
If you like, oh, Texas bought their team. Everybody is buying their team. Look at Texas Tech. I'm never going to be critical of Texas Tech because you know what? That's one benefit they have. They live in the middle of nowhere and they're drilling a lot of oil.
Yeah.
So they got their billionaire tech guy that's fun. As much as you probably dislike Cody Campbell.
I don't dislike him.
If I had $1 billion, you know where I'd put a lot of it? I'd put it into Texas football. And I'm sure a lot of people listening would as well. Yeah. Into whatever program. God. Billy, if you had $1 billion in your bank, where would you put a lot of that money?
I'll tell you what, I just had a thought of you as a billionaire donor to Texas. You'd have an awful lot to say too with your billion. You'd be like, here you go. Now I'm gonna be calling you like once a week. That's what goes with this.
Taylor Swift was a passionate. she loves Xavier Worthy, so maybe I can give her a call.
I'm keeping. Not that I have a connection or a line to her, but you're not. No, we're not. Y'all are not adopting.
Those charitable funds, I'll just tell her about some of the charity organizations that like Colin Simmons has started and be like, I found a great, you should donate to our team.
We're doing a story. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about these two offenses should, in my opinion, both be really good this year. There are a couple of question marks, to say, okay, if they're not, here could be why. But for the most part, I think they should both be very high up when it comes to SEC offenses this year. Who is more equipped to field like a top 5, top 10 national unit this year, like to be the best offense in the SEC, which will be competitive when you got Kiffin in Baton Rouge, you got Trinidad Chambliss, and you got Stockton and what they did last year, and then obviously the Aggies and Longhorns and Alabama, whoever else we're forgetting here. But out of these two teams that we talk about, who's more equipped and why? Kind of run down the list of like what what would factor into that?
I mean, you have a list here of.
Yeah.
I can just go through these points of just returning starters. I didn't look up total offense and scoring offense comparisons
From last year, yeah.
Last year, but I will say for returning starters for Texas, you have Arch, Wingo, Emmett Mosley, Gooseby, Connor Robertson, Brandon Baker, Nick Townsend, tight end. He started a couple games, and then Ryan Niblett whenever he's a part of the offense. Obviously not a permanent, it's more special teams, but you see him pop in the offense occasionally. So returning, I think the most important returners you have are on the O-line and at QB. And then you obviously have, I feel like Sark had a comment in a presser, I think last week, where he said, I feel like we've forgotten about Ryan Wingo.
Yeah.
Everybody can be critical of Ryan Wingo as much as you want. He had a lot of drops that were pretty unacceptable, but at the same time, he almost had 1,000 yards last year.
No, he's really good. He's all
great.
SEC, what, third team, second team?
Yeah, he's a great wide receiver. And now you have Cam Coleman added to that equation. You put both of those guys on the field, two players that would normally be double covered by the safeties. You got to split their coverage, and then you have Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. I would think that's going to improve your run game a little bit because you just have to kind of pick what you're going to commit to there. Yeah. So I would say I just feel like people forget about the threat of Ryan Wingo a lot. And even though he had some bad drops, I think you can look back at like Xavier Worthy. People were calling for him to transfer.
People are crazy.
People calling for him to transfer because he had a rough, I think it was his sophomore season. I think it was his sophomore season. And then you turn around and Xavier Worthy is a god to Texas. So Wingo's just going to get better. He's going to get more reliable. As he's getting older, he's getting more experience. And now you have the added threat of Cam Coleman that's going to make Wingo probably get a little less pressure depending on what you're calling. Without question. So I think Texas benefits from not exactly just the number of players they're returning, but what specific players they are returning. And then I feel like they really honed in on where the deficiencies were in the offense last season and went to the portal to replace those deficiencies, like in the running back room. Yeah, I agree that's why this conversation is so interesting, because so many weapons. In A&M, they've got so much at the skill spots as well. They lost Le'Veon Moss, but Le'Veon was hurt from like game 5 on. Now, but the A&M run game also wasn't super prevalent last year. It took a big hit with him getting hurt. You're not wrong about that. Texas's run game was also not super prevalent last year. So I think that's a room that both teams really need to try to improve going into this season. Well, to get where they both want to be, you've got to have. So I think A&M, you've got Case. You're replacing Casey Concepcion. You've got Mario Craver. You've got Ashton Bethel-Roman. You added Isaiah Horton. Worried about wide receivers at all. No, they're deep. I mentioned Gregory. Bussey's going to be used, I think, a lot like Anais Smith in that hybrid role where you can move him around the formation. You can give him handoffs. You can throw him the ball. Running back, you've talked about it. That's a spot where it's interesting because you see the production of the two Texas guys at different teams in different leagues. And then you see got Raleek Brown, and 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns at Arizona State. Hollywood Smothers at NC State, 939 yards, 6 touchdowns. So 2 near 1,000-yard running back and 1 near 1,000-yard running back. Hey, you're bringing in 2,000 yards rushing. Not have that last year. No, I don't know how many yards Wisner had last year. I can look that up. Well, but I know it wasn't that. To me, with the Aggies, you've got Ruben Owens coming back that ran for roughly 700, and Jamarian Morrow, who did not, but had big games, big time plays and touchdowns against, I think 2 each against LSU and Florida as a true freshman. He's got to really emerge. Wisner had 597 and half of it was against A&M, it felt like. 3 touchdowns, So Wisner, he wasn't the guy.
So Texas, all right. So you guys made the moves to go get 2,000 yards in rushing, and on the Aggie side, they didn't try to make that move, and they said, "I think we're good with what we have." So that's going to be a fascinating watch as the year goes on, because I do agree with you that Brown and Smothers are both very explosive running backs. They can hit home runs. You look at the
That's
number.
what Sark was prioritizing, because I think
For
Texas
sure.
was missing explosive plays last season, and especially when it came to running the football.
Yeah.
Unless it's Ryan Niblett returning a punt.
Yeah, right. So we talked about, running backs. I like where both teams are at. They just went about it differently. And I understand that there's more yardage production for those two guys at Texas, but they also produced in the Big 12 and ACC, which is not the SEC. It's not to say they can't, but I
will say they
don't
also,
think that numbers are
that
apples to apples. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but with that argument, I mean, I need to look up the stats of, I believe, Raleigh Brown, because you go against. I would love to see stats against like Texas Tech's defense to see what he looked that game, because that was a very good defense. And then I think you also just have to bring into perspective the fact of what they had around them was also inferior.
Yeah.
So when you're upgrading in the talent around you, that should also benefit your play.
Well, you want me to say something that actually gives a little credence to what you said? Look up Ray Leak against Mississippi State also, but also Hollywood Smothers played at NC State. You know who else played at NC State?
Oh.
Casey Concepcion. And that translated just fine. So that is something to consider. But
so Raleigh Brown, 110 yards against Mississippi State, 69 yards against Texas Tech, 1 touchdown. So still, I mean,
those are good numbers against those teams, and
that's still producing more than what Wisner did most of the season against very talented teams. I mean, I can look up what Wisner did against like Georgia.
Wisner. We don't need to talk about Wisner. You guys absolutely upgraded at that position. There is no question. Yeah. Wisner was an A&M and OU standout. And
A&M 155 yards.
Yeah.
OU 94 yards. I mean, he had a good game against OSU too. He had 80 yards against OSU. And then 75 against Vandy. He did okay against Arkansas, but that's Arkansas. I'm not going to give them.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I have a cat in the background.
So wait, we got to keep going because we're going to run out of time here. We got to talk about the rest of this offense. I think both O-lines are. I think Texas is less of a question mark because of what they return. But my thing, and we talked about this last week, I still think you got to see it anytime you're trying to go from bad to good on the O-line, and they progressed towards getting good towards the end of last year. But you still have to see it to know it. Texas,
I think they got to where they were good enough.
Yeah, good enough.
If they had been playing like they did if they had played like they did the second half against A&M and against OU the entire season, I don't think you lose to Florida. I think you don't send it to overtime against Mississippi State. I think you win a little more comfortably against Kentucky. I mean, I still think you lose to Georgia. I still think you lose to Ohio State.
You probably beat Florida, and then so you're in the playoff.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
We got some stats to show how poorly that O-line played against Florida.
For sure. And then tight ends, I think for both, it's encouraging. For A&M, they've got 2 portal additions, and they've got some guys coming back. So
we got a portal addition. We got Michael Masunas, and then you have Nick Townsend, which Aggie should remember that name. He scored a touchdown in the A&M game.
Well, and Nick is a guy that low-key Elko and company really wanted him. In fact, I think he came to a game late in the year while committed to Texas. He either showed up or canceled last minute, but they continued to press and recruit him.
He's going into year 2, should be a little improved over getting some freshman legs under him.
And the Aggies got Richie Anderson from Fresno State and Houston Thomas, who's a local kid from UTSA. So those two. Okay. I think both. Here's something I wrote: Sark with experience, but still some questions. Wiggins, zero experience, but he did work with Sark, but he's an unknown. So, like, I think there's definite question on both sides at OC. Sark obviously is the proven commodity here times 100. Where Wiggins, they went, and Elko, we've talked about it. He said, I'm not scared to roll the dice here. This is my guy. He's never called plays. This is my guy. And we all know how much, we talked about the money thing. He could have gone to anyone at A&M and said, that in, at the athletics, could have gone to Trev Alberts and said, I need this to go hire this guy. And the answer would have been yes. He went with Wiggins.
Tested quickly.
Yes.
I mean, I think Arizona State will be his first real test. Missouri State should be a nice little warm up for him.
It better be a nice little warm up, or I'm not
stressed during that game, or I would be really concerned going into the rest of the season.
So I think these offenses, fans on both sides should be damn excited. It's not without any questions. It's not perfect, but there's a lot to be excited about. And these two, I think I'd be very surprised. On A&M side, I'd be disappointed. Both sides should be disappointed if it's not two. It's a 16-team SEC. These should be two of the top 5 offenses in the league, and I think neither one has any business being outside the top 20, even though the goal obviously is higher. Do you agree with that?
I think I agree. Yeah, I think Texas has an edge, but I think A&M has enough wide receiver depth and proven ability to connect with wide receivers with Marcel, even though there were some yards left on the board there last season. But there's enough proven ability and in his running ability as well that the offense should still be productive.
I'd give Texas a slight edge just in terms of OC experience, and just it's one's a known commodity, and then I'd do it on the O-line. They return 3 starters to 1, although again, who knows what Holman Wiggins is going to be like. He could be a savant out there. And then the second part is, who knows what an O-line is going to look like when you could potentially start 4 portal guys that have started in the SEC. So I'd like today, if you said, okay, rank them, I'd go, okay, Texas, you give an edge in a couple areas, but for the year, they should both be great. And I don't think either one of them has an excuse.
The running back room also gives Texas a little bit of an edge.
I mean, I see why. You've said why. I think a lot of that will depend on, again, like, how good is Jamarian Morrow? How big of an improvement does Reuben Owens make? I think you guys went
a lot of what ifs.
2 what ifs, not a lot. No, I mean there's 2 what ifs.
What's behind that?
Well, you got 2 true freshmen and a second-year guy in Tiger Ryden that has had actually a good spring, but was hurt prior to camp or during camp last year and was a non-factor last year. And then you have the 2 true freshmen, which I know Texas has. We talked about him last week. A really exciting true freshman. The Aggies signed.
Who he was last week?
I didn't forget who I.
Like, oh yeah, he played in the bowl game.
So, do you want me to tell you what happened there? Since here's what happened. I watched the bowl game, and there was a freshman back in the bowl game that caught my eye and looked really good. And then I forgot that he's the one that transferred to South Carolina, because after that little incident.
Back was that?
I don't know his name, but he transferred to South Carolina. He was good in the bowl game. He had like 100. He had like 110 total yards in the bowl game, and then he was out. But then it was like, it doesn't matter. We're going to go get 2.
I don't think he was a freshman.
He wasn't. Well, he was young. He was young.
It was. I know who you're talking about. The name is escaping me right now.
Just type in South Carolina running back, Texas portal. But anyway,
Christian Clark,
yeah.
Yes, he was not a freshman.
So he was in his second year.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
But yeah, so, Derek Cooper. You also have Michael Terry III.
Mm-hmm.
Jet Walker was a late recruit from Georgetown, but he scored a touchdown in the scrimmage this weekend, looking really good in spring practice. Then you have James Simon. He had playtime last year.
Yeah, I remember him.
Freshman last year. So he's returning as well. So you have a little bit more to work with in the running back room, I think, than a lot of people realize, especially when you have a freshman like Derek Cooper and then Michael Terry
Dude,
III.
I'm going to be pissed every time I hear Derek Cooper just because of your reaction to that. He was a freshman. Like, freshman. And I'm sitting here going, okay, you're right. It was that guy. I got him confused. That's all that happened. And look,
Derek Cooper and Christian Clark, very similar players, according to Billy.
I mean, the kid ran. I hope he
Christian
ran.
Clark did amazing, and I was on. That was
well
one where I was very sad to see him go, and I wish him a lot of success at South Carolina.
Okay, let's move on because that scene last week. Anyway, you're just sometimes your reactions are like comical.
I don't expect you to have the entire Texas roster memorized.
Thank you.
I did not have the entire A&M roster.
I appreciate that.
All right, y'all, if you're looking for a clean energy boost on game day or honestly any day, check out Catalyst Pure Performance Energy. This stuff is built for people who want energy without the junk. We're talking zero sugar, no artificial colors or flavors, no preservatives, and no artificial sweeteners. Catalyst gives you a steady, non-jittery stream of energy thanks to natural nootropics and the same caffeine as a cup of coffee, so you get focus and endurance without the crash. And the flavors, superberry, pomegranate power, orange dream, citrus spark, cherry lime charge, and grapefruit, all refreshing, never syrupy. So if you want to fuel your workouts, your late night study sessions, or your Saturday tailgates, grab Catalyst Pure Performance Energy at a store near you or on drinkcatalyst.com. Ignite your performance.
Now, for you, here are my questions this week. We do them 2 each week. Okay. Now, because I'm always playing contrarian, right? And you tell me that all the time, and I'm slow to give credit, which you are not wrong. Tell me why Texas will. I'll tell you all the reasons why they won't, right? Tell me why they will win it all this year. As in, just give me, if they did that, what will be the reasons why?
So I wrote out a little bit of an answer to this, and my first comment was, I am not saying Texas will win a national title.
I'm presenting it, yeah.
Followed by an eye roll. Because I will never say, like, I just feel like that's bad juju, just like being ranked number 1 going into the season. I will say reasons why they are a threat and a contender in the playoffs is they return a much higher percentage of their roster this year than they did last year, one of the highest in the SEC. And that in addition with adding a top portal class, which is something that they did not do last year and I think contributed to missing the playoffs. Those are my main 2 reasons, just talent returning, especially at critical positions like quarterback. That's one of the main ones. You have a quarterback that is going to be a preseason Heisman favorite, whether you agree with it or not. I mean, if you don't agree with it, I just don't think you watched all of Texas's games last season intently. You probably caught the lowlights if you're not a fan of Texas and then ran with the Athletic article, without giving credit where it was due to the turnaround and the other things that were impacting the play. And I say Heisman candidate. I don't say front runner.
I get it.
I would probably have Trindad Chambliss over Arch right now, personally, just after watching him in the playoffs.
Yeah, the way he finished.
Yeah. I think it's mainly just returning the higher percentage of your roster combined with adding that portal talent. And I think Will Muschamp will also be a factor, because I think something that held Texas back last year, one of the major things that you can point to for the reason they lost to Florida was that secondary and the defense. It's a defense that you had not seen struggle in the way it struggled against Florida. Texas hung their hat on defense in 2024. I mean, Texas didn't need to score 40 points a game in 2024 because their defense was holding other teams to under 20. So I think changing it up there, as good as PK was, because it's not like PK was a bad defensive coordinator, but I do think they've leveled up with Will Muschamp. And that's obviously, we'll see if that's actually the case, but just based on Will Muschamp's history at defensive coordinator and his experience and what we've been hearing from spring camp, I think the energy is there for the defense to take a step forward in the areas they need to take a step forward this year, which is probably going to segue into your next question.
Yeah, and I was going to say, because sometimes a lot of what I look at when I'm evaluating like A&M or A&M opposition for that matter is I like to see, it's changed a little bit now with the portal, and this is something you and I talk about all the time, is you're talking about this stuff, you kind of have to evolve and adapt the way you look at it too. So I will say this is maybe, but to me, like a lot of times I look at like, what did they lose in back-to-back years? Because there's a reloading thing that you can do better now with the portal, but it is kind of like, man, if you take big hits a lot of times to me at positions in back-to-back years, that could be the year you see the slight drop. Or if you're a lesser program, a big drop. I don't think in the case of Texas, you're talking about a big drop anywhere, or even A&M for that matter now with the way Elko has it going. But I was going to ask you, if you look at the secondary and you look at, Makuba at safety and what was the corner that was so good? Jahdae Barron at corner, who was a first rounder. And then you look at this year and you lose Manny and you lose the heart and soul of that defense in Taft. When you lose stuff like that, do you have any concern that they've lost too much in back-to-back years to avoid? Have they lost too much to avoid that slight rebuild or step back? Because, like you said, they're going to need to take a step forward and not the other way around.
I think you could make that argument for last year. I don't think you can make that argument as well for this year, just because I don't think the talent lost is quite the caliber as the talent lost in 2024. I mean, you're losing Malik, Michael Taft, and Jalen Gilbo, 3 very talented players in the secondary, but I think you have enough young talent retained that contributed significantly last year.
Yeah.
Coming up, that's going to be a better replacement factor, or like a better replacement factor. I mean, Grayson Littleton, true freshman this year, started 8 games.
True.
He's going to have experience coming into this year. You put a freshman on the field in the shoe, he's got some really measurable experience to really level up this season, and he had a great freshman season. You also have the addition of players like Bo Masco. You have freshman Samari Matthews that's been making waves in spring camp, so we'll see if he sees significant playing time. And then just a couple other names. Texas really did retain a lot in the secondary, and I think that's the most important factor of just retaining young talent, which is why I think they'll actually take a step forward versus you could definitely argue they did take a step back in the secondary last season. I think they're going to take a step forward.
I see what you're saying. There's a lot of raw talent.
You have Xavier Filsami, Cade Phillips, Derek Williams Jr., who had an ACL injury in 2024 that ended his season. Kind of struggled last season recovering from that. Should be, from the notes from On Texas, he's at about 95% at this point. So he should be in a lot better place. You have Kobe Black interception against A&M. Then you have Wardle Mack, Jonah Williams. You have a lot that's being added to this secondary.
So that was you basically say you disagree.
I disagree.
In a word. Okay. And I didn't say it was. I didn't say it was. I was asking. Yeah, that wasn't me taking a hard step. I'm just kind of looking. But, yeah, a lot of those names you said, I've watched Texas. I know what you're talking about are the playmakers. I know, Cade Phillips is a guy that got better and better as last year went on, and he was one that, his brother came to A&M. You're
returning Jelani McDonald, who led Texas in interceptions last year and tackles.
Yeah.
So you're returning one of arguably the most impactful player in the secondary last season, and he's going to be the new heart and soul and looking like the leader of the secondary this year.
Perfect. That was educational. Let's go on to your 2 questions.
Oh, I have one more note.
What?
Muschamp has produced 8 first-round picks out of the secondary and 38 DBs in the NFL overall. So I'd say he's a pretty good evaluator of secondary talent.
Well, probably developer as well with those kind of numbers. I remember what he did, when he was in Austin. And obviously, look, it's not like A&M's been far from him. They played him. They played him in 2012 here. He defended Johnny Manziel in his first game in an A&M uniform, and then A&M faced him when he was at South Carolina as well. So a lot of history with A&M tried to hire him a couple times, Kevin Sumlin. So a lot of history with Muschamp and the Aggies. So definitely familiar there. What are your questions this week?
First question, what position group do you think will actually take, we've discussed a lot of just the risks associated with some of the worries with how much A&M's losing this year to the draft, because it's a significant amount. What position group do you think will 100% take a step forward?
Okay, good question. And can I tell you, there's I know someone that puts together a very interesting study in college football, and he hasn't put it out yet this year, but he told me this is something that I know A&M values, are like career starts. And with what they added in the portal, Texas A&M again this year in college football, not the SEC, in the whole country, they're going to be number one in roster career starts. So just a little tidbit, they do lose a lot. They also bring back a lot. For your question, which is a great one, which one do I feel the most comfortable and confident in saying takes a big step forward this year? Last year I would have said wide receiver, and that's what happened. This year, I'm most confident in the secondary. As you said it earlier, the word leveling up. I think it's hard to see right now because they went and signed Ricky Gibson out of Tennessee, and he's been banged up. Nothing significant, but it's kept him from practicing a lot so far. And then they're missing Dalton Brooks and Des Ricks, who had offseason, repairs done. They'll be fine, but they've been out all spring. So 3 of your 4 starters out, or 5 if you're playing in a nickel. So it's a little hard to see. But I really love that group, plus Marcus Ratcliffe. You bring back Bryce Anderson. Jordan Shaw has impressed me in year 2 out of the portal. He played against Texas in that Washington secondary in the playoffs. So that group, and then Julio Humphrey, who was a 10-game starter for Georgia 2 years ago, I thought had a really good game down in Austin, actually. So that group right there, to me, is prepared to be like wide receiver was this past year, where they take a significant jump forward. That's what I'm most confident in.
Okay. Second question. If you duplicated Texas's results last season, and that's the season A&M had this coming season, so 9-3, missed the playoffs hardly, 1 loss that it's a little embarrassing that you really wish you can get back, but you beat your rival, would you consider it a successful season? Now, mind you, Elko's, take this into account, it'd be Elko's 3rd season.
Okay.
It would still be technically better than Sark's first 3 seasons at Texas, just in a different order.
Okay. So you're saying
consider that a success?
9-3, win over Texas, don't go to playoffs, and lose to, I'm just going to pick a random one, like lose to South Carolina. Well, they don't play Mississippi, so yeah.
Oh, wait.
Like lose to South Carolina or Kentucky. Okay.
I think Kentucky's probably and Kentucky's at home.
True.
So,
well, you guys didn't lose at home, though.
Oh, yeah, we didn't lose at home.
So
Let me look at your schedule and pick one.
Let's do South Carolina. I think that fits what you're saying. It really does, because Kentucky's kind of lower than Florida. Like reputationally, Florida's higher than Kentucky. Yeah. Lose at South Carolina, beat Texas, but go 9-3 and don't make the play.
I mean, South Carolina has a similar season to what Florida had.
Well, I consider that a good year or successful season.
Yes, and there is an argument that A&M should have made the playoffs at the end of it. Texas makes the playoffs, A&M doesn't. There is an argument that A&M probably should have been there in the playoffs too. It's just the College Football Playoff Committee is bad at evaluating games.
Can I answer that and say no, but it doesn't kill your progress. But I wouldn't. It's hard when you say they'd beat Texas, right? Because we talked about that earlier. That's a great question. I'm going to say
Texas is a highly ranked team and had a great season.
Yeah,
similar to how, say, Texas is 11-0 and coasting into College Station. and you upset the perfect season.
Yes, I would call it a successful season. You know why? Because you've said it's, you'd have to win some really meaningful games to get there too. So you'd have some nice wins. The schedule's harder, remember?
Like, it's very reflective of Texas's schedule, considering Texas played 5 top 10 ranked teams.
True.
So
yes,
it's
I would call it a successful season. It's not. You would have fallen short of the goal. So maybe by some people's definition, that means not successful. But I think I've said 9-3. If you go 9-3, but there's a win over Texas, yes.
Okay.
The goals are set higher though, but I think you'd have to take a look back and go, this team is still trending very, very much in the right direction with 20 wins over 2 years. And by the way, you're also including a bowl win over a blue blood program too, so we'll do that as well.
So so I mean, interesting evaluation, and I don't know if you'd apply the same to considering Texas as a successful season, but there is a difference in how long the coach has been the head coach at the
You're
university.
talking about this year, you mean? Like if Texas did
I think
that again?
Texas's season, I mean, obviously you could say missed the goal. A lot to be proud of in the games won.
Mm-hmm.
Missed the goal. A lot of regrets.
That's a tough question. I don't
failure.
I don't know if I agree with my own answer there. That was a good one. When you ask a question like that, you've done well because I don't know the damn answer to it. I'm already like backpedaling.
If I was an Aggie, I consider it a successful season just based on the difficulty of the schedule compared to your 11-win season, where you were playing bottom feeders for most of your season. It's accurate. I mean, you're playing top talent.
Bottom feeders, like when just the wording.
How many teams did you play last season that were in the bottom half of the SEC standings?
I don't know. I mean, I could look at. I mean, I don't know. I remember that line. Yeah, I mean Texas. Who else?
You know,
I don't know who else was in. Don't look it up. Just don't. We've done it. I know the line. It's
Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, Arkansas, LSU, Mizzou, South Carolina. So South Carolina, pretty sure LSU finished in the bottom, but they were ranked at the time, so we'll give you that.
Yeah, and so was Mizzou, I think. Yeah, they were.
Yeah, it was ranked at the time, 20 and 19. But Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi State, Auburn.
Look, I get it, and I just don't think of them as like when I think of these. I'm just quibbling with you on the word, like the bottom feed. Like to me,
I'm just calling the bottom half of the SEC the bottom feeder.
Okay, in that case, then yeah, that's not really disputable, is it? You know,
I mean, if you lose to say an OU in Norman, an rebuilt LSU, like that's a little different than.
But you know what? Here's the lesson I learned last year, and it's partially 2 years ago when I was sitting there criticizing Texas' schedule. You have to wait and see because it changes. And you look back at this time a year ago, no one was questioning the strength of A&M's schedule. When you had Notre Dame, and they go Florida and Lagway, and they turned it on at the end of last year. And then you look. Auburn is going to make a jump this year. They went and got Jackson Arnold. Can you free save the offense? And they got this defense back. And then,
do you know the saying? What? Hindsight's 20/20.
I'm not saying.
Don't know until you know.
Exactly. Like everyone thought LSU was going to be great when they beat Clemson. I had to hear how they were going to go play for a national title that year. They were going to go into the playoffs. So you just don't know. And so this year's schedule looks really damn daunting for the Longhorns and the Aggies. Who's to say that a lot of these teams aren't going to, like maybe Texas plays Ole Miss. Maybe Ole Miss falls off a cliff without Lane Kiffin. And
maybe OU ends up being trash. I would love to see it.
Yeah, so or maybe South Carolina, they get Kendall Briles as their OC and they got Sellers back and they got some answers in the run. They got a great defensive pass rusher. Maybe South Carolina makes a big jump back. Nick Harbor at wide receiver. So we just don't know. But yeah, in hindsight of last year, you're right. Bottom half, but not bottom feeders is what I'll say. What else we got for this week? We got a couple more.
Stronger than the Big 12.
Yes, for sure. All right.
We want to discuss a conversation we had with a friend. I guess you know him, a mutual on.
Brooks Austin.
Yes.
I love Brooks. I think he's one of
Austin
the.
is very passionate about the quarterback argument between Texas and Texas A&M, and he's passionately determined that Arch is a better quarterback.
Well, why don't you
Brooks Austin is a pretty smart dude. So
Brooks Austin's a stud. He knows his shit. He's really good. And one of the more likable people. I just, it's like Josh Pate when he was first coming up. These guys that just go and get it on their own and build it up, and they build up a following because they're just really good at what they do. I love seeing those people thrive in that the social media and content space in the SEC. And I say social media, YouTube is not that, but that's in that space to just really blow up and thrive. So I don't know, have you pulled up the exchange we all had?
I wasn't even part of this conversation. You responded to somebody else that was quote tweeting a tweet that said Marcel's already better than Arch, and already better is differently wording. Interesting wording considering Marcel has more starting experience than Arch. So already better, you'd think with more starting experience, he should be better than Arch. And the response was she quote tweeted saying he has 6 more passing yards than Arch.
Yeah.
Your response was this quarterback comparison will be the most tiring offseason topic when it comes to the two teams. There's no real differentiator between the two. Brooks responded very clearly. Sure there is. Arch is better.
Yeah. Period. So he agrees with you.
And you responded as an NFL prospect potential or during the 2025 season. I contend the good and the bad were pretty damn even. And Brooks said, you can take one of them tomorrow. We're taking Arch. That's my reasoning. I think all the look at the stats arguments are silly. One of them has 24 big-time throws on tape from a year ago out of the pocket. One of them has a bunch of wow athletic plays on scramble and a lot of RPO slants to great slot weapons from a year ago. That's extreme generalizations, but I think you get it. My reply was having similar stats outside of Marcel having nearly double the number of interceptions when he benefited from a drastically more experienced O-line and better wide receivers doesn't exactly bode well for your argument. With the tools around him, his numbers should have been significantly better than Arch. And I have the numbers you wanted. Then you said, well, I pulled up certain numbers, and you said, well, what about these other numbers? That's the definition of moving the goalposts.
I kind of said, yeah, you pulled up some stats. I kind of said, well, wait. Before we go into your numbers, let me start by saying, to me, they're two completely, other than the fact that they can both make things happen with their running ability, they're completely different quarterbacks. And I can look at 24 big-time NFL throws, and that's why I said, as NFL prospect, I absolutely see the difference. I absolutely see why the NFL salivates over the high-end throwing capability. He reminds me in a lot of ways of like an Andrew Luck who went.
Which one, Arch?
Arch. Yeah, definitely not Marcel would be more of like a Jaden Daniels type. They're different quarterbacks. Not completely, but they're pretty damn different. And to me, you saw Marcel as a playmaker make those plays. That was a big part of the reason why a team that went what was predicted to go 8-4 and went 8-4 the year before, went 11-0 and finished 11-1 in the regular season. They were picked to win 8. They won 11. No one had them in the playoffs. They got there. And a lot of that, Amanda, was because of how Marcel played. Now, he couldn't get it done in the last 2 games against a really good Texas defense and a Miami defense that was just suffocating everyone, including Ohio State and including Mendoza for 3.5 quarters down the stretch. So, yes, a lot of room that needs improvement. But, man, I would say if you put their great games and just said, here's a great game by Arch. Here's a great game by Marcel. Here's one by Arch. Okay, here's one by Marcel. Not always against the best teams for either one of them. And then you went and looked at, okay, here's the bad game. Okay, here's the bad game. Your reason why the bad games are happening for Arch early in the year is because they couldn't block. I would contend that Texas and Simmons and Miami and Mesidor and Bain had a lot to do with it, but A&M couldn't run the football and couldn't block.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You contend that it's like, I say it's because they couldn't block, and you can physically look at the fact that Arch was getting pummeled on these plays. For you to act like that wasn't the primary contributing factor to why Arch's performance was less than in those games and try to offload it and place it elsewhere is a little ridiculous, and you just trying to find something to make your argument more sustainable when everybody else in the college football universe seems to disagree with you. Maybe not everybody else, but most people that aren't wearing maroon disagree with you.
Most do. You are not wrong.
I have yet to find a person that's not an Aggie that puts Marcel above Arch.
I'm not putting him above. But yeah, you're right. Most would disagree that to even have this, they wouldn't even entertain it. You're correct. You're not wrong about that. And
there's a reason. There's a very good reason for that. And you wanted the stats. You moved the goalpost to the stats against the common opponents, and I pulled those stats against common opponents.
What are they?
And I think the thing that stands out the most is the number of sacks against common opponents, including each other. So you have Florida, Mississippi State, Arkansas, A&M. Both teams were 3-1.
Okay.
Arch had 13 sacks. I think you can directly correlate that to the amount of pressure he was taking all season long. Primarily, the O-line improved in a couple games, but there were still a lot of holes to be filled. Marcel, in comparison, 2 sacks behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. And his numbers were still lower than Arch in all of the comparable metrics, other than rushing yards. That is the only stat that Marcel had the edge over Arch.
What were the TDs to interceptions in those games?
Touchdowns to interceptions. Arch had 12. Marcel had 9 touchdowns. Interceptions. Arch had 3. Marcel had 4. Yards. Arch had 1,100, around 1,100, closer to 1,200. Marcel had 874. Trying to look at my other stats. QBR rating averaged. Arch 77.75, Marcel 72.
So similar. It's not that out of whack. And
yes, but it's not that out of whack, except for the fact that one quarterback was in a much worse position than the other. So
for half the year,
one quarterback is starting at the plate while Marcel is starting on second base.
Man, this whole listen, when to give him a second base on that one, it's like Arch started, the O-line was bad at the beginning of the year. If you go back, how many sacks did he take against Texas and Miami? Or even South Carolina?
The only game where Marcel took a significant number of sacks was Miami.
Okay. And how many was that? Probably a half a dozen? 5, 6?
I don't have those stats.
It was a lot. I lived it. It was a lot.
It was a lot. That was the only game. So looking at the regular season, there's just not really an excuse there as far as, and that's the regular season is where Marcel piled up most of his stats.
He did.
So Marcel took 7 sacks against Miami.
Okay.
That is the outlier. Auburn, he took 4. That is the only other game where he took a significant number of sacks. Otherwise, he took 1 at Texas, 2 at South Carolina, 1 at Mizzou, 1 at Mississippi State. And then
that's surprising. The Texas and South, I will say those are surprising surprisingly low numbers.
Yeah, for two of the least successful games as far as, I mean, Marcel had a great second half against South Carolina, but that first half was something you want to forget.
So, I mean, look, basically what I was saying in that whole thing was simply to say, like, this debate will go on all summer about these two, and I
mean, the debate will only go on with you because you are stubborn enough to continue to want to talk in circles about this instead of just admit that one quarterback has the edge in a lot of areas, and one quarterback had the benefit of one of the best, and that's a compliment to A&M, that one quarterback had the benefit of one of the best defensive lines in the league last year. If I were an Aggie, I would have wanted to see more growth year over year with all of the tools Marcel had available, with a first-round draft pick at wide receiver. I would have wanted to see significantly more growth year over year. That's not to say that he can't make those strides this year, but he has more starting experience than Arch. He has nearly a full season of starting experience in the SEC over Arch.
Fair. You're not wrong there. So, yeah, like
comparatively, there wasn't much of a step forward year over year. And if you look at the end of season,
I think
hindsight 2020, the skill level of the teams you were playing, you didn't get the best of the SEC last year either.
No, but I do think.
No, but that's a problem. It's always a but.
There is. I mean, it's part of debating something.
It's the same bullshit you've been spewing that's just going to continue the circular talk.
When you're debating something like we are, there's a but. It's how you do it. That's what we're doing. So, but yeah, it is. It's just, speaking of circular, we're doing this. It's just not. We're going nowhere with it, but I mean,
we're going nowhere because you won't end the conversation because of pride.
Okay, we can end it, and I will say, look, I think the guy I think he made bigger strides than people will say. First of all, I do. I think there was a bigger jump than is being recognized. I do think.
Waiting to hear the actual explanation for the jump because none of the explanations hold any weight when you're looking at stats or play on the field. My quarterback's throwing 12 interceptions against bottom feeders in the SEC. I'm going to have concerns.
He wasn't throwing them against I don't think they were coming against the bottom feeders. I think he threw them, unfortunately, against some of the best defense. I mean, 5 of them came against Texas and Miami.
2 against South Carolina. He threw
2 against LSU.
1 against Mississippi State, 1 against Auburn, 2 against LSU, 2 against Texas. Not a bottom feeder. We'll give him that. Didn't throw any against Mizzou. That's not a bottom feeder. 1 against Florida.
And 3 against Miami. So what I was getting
2 against Miami.
So I honestly, like, I'll say, I can't give you, like, you've got the stats, you've got the, 1 year to the next. We've done that dance before. You've got.
What is it? Billy's eyeball test? That's the reason that's. Okay. Yeah. But going based on Billy's eyeball test, that's the reasoning we're going to leave it with here.
I mean, it's a hard argument to have because you got everyone would agree with what you're saying on this.
There's a reason for it. You can admit that there's a reason for it.
No, here's the thing. I think it's a whole nother topic to be had another day because I'm ready for this to mercifully end, if we're being honest. But I'm like, Arch, like, I'm watching the end of the year, and I know there's those wow plays. I think, much like Marcel, he has a lot of improvement to make as a passer. I think he missed a lot of he has that wow throw, just like Marcel can make that wow play with his legs or on the run, and hopefully they'll move him around in the pocket a lot more this year in this offense.
Yeah, I think they'll actually probably have a pocket.
No, I'm meaning Marcel and A&M. Like, I think hopefully they start letting him do more on the move with his legs, move that pocket so he could have different lines of sight and all these things that I'm hoping we're seeing in the spring, and it's really encouraging. But like I think Arch too. I've watched him even down the stretch, even against A&M, where I gave him a lot of credit for toughness and just like the running ability and the toughness. But man, I can't find 3-4 like wow throws he made in that game. I can think of a couple, but I also think of some plays that maybe Texas wins by more in that game.
Out because you were losing that you can't find 3-4 wow throws?
What'd you say?
Is it because you blacked out because you were losing and didn't want to remember it that you can't find 3-4 wow throws? Because I can probably pull a couple up real quick.
I would challenge you to pull those. And I think his two biggest plays of the game through the air were an uncovered tight end that you or I would have made that throw, and then the touchdown to Wingo that he almost threw out of the end zone and there was no one within 20 yards of him. There was one other throw that I said, oh shit, where he stepped up in the pocket, he dipped his shoulder, and he ripped it. And I saw him do that a lot this year, and those were those highlight throws, I think, that like Brooks is talking about, where you go, not many guys can do that. And I understand he does that way more than Marcel does. But again, I went with the Andrew Luck, Jaden Daniels thing. Marcel does that a lot more. I mean, go ask LSU. Go ask, and I know they're bottom, go ask Notre Dame, where he had 400 yards of offense. Like, to say that he just threw slants and let KC and Mario run, I think is an exaggeration as well. I think if you go watch games like that, Marcel did some things where you go, damn, not many guys in college football can do that. Now, granted.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say your own fan base disagrees with you partially. So this is an exhausting conversation. I think we just need to move on.
We're done on this one. I am.
Every single metric except for rushing yards proves you wrong.
Okay. But we can, this will be a great one to revisit as the year goes on. And I think it will probably be pretty clear who ended up being right.
I mean, if Arch has a rough season, I'll be the first to admit it, but there's no reason now, evaluating right now what we've seen from last season and the trajectory each quarterback was going on. How many interceptions did Marcel have in his last however many games?
10 in the last 5, not counting Samford.
Yeah. Okay. We can move on.
I'm done. I don't want to talk about it anymore. So let's go. We can talk about it more.
The horse is dead. The horse is
we can talk about it more as. But the whole tweet too was like, this is going to be an off-season thing that goes on. But I mean, I'm just saying. If
Austin agrees with me, then I'm on the right side of history.
I tend not to disagree with that statement, but I just think Arch is going to. You watch tape on the two, and one of them's going to just wow you more and make you fall in love more.
One NFL analysis said he watched tape on Casey Concepcion, and the one thing that it proved was how bad the quarterback who was throwing it to him was.
That guy, I don't know how much of an analyst.
Really good. I watched Casey Concepcion's highlight reel. I will say there were some really good throws in that. There were some mixed ins there were a lot of yards left on the board. There were some hospital balls that he managed to catch because Casey Concepcion is a fantastic wide receiver. Arch had those as well. Arch had those yards left on the board as well, those passes that were dropped.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to win this, so I want out of it. I don't want to do this debate anymore, but I'll say this. I think people are really underestimating number 10, and I think I'm going to end up being right. And I think Arch is going to be really good, but I think people are glossing over how much improvement he does need to make. And I agree with you. It should be a clearer path when you add in a Cam Coleman and you don't have this horrendously bad offensive line that he did deal with for about half the season.
Leaving out the context of the factors around Arch that contributed to his play and him needing to improve versus Marcel and the things he had around him that contributed.
I don't want to do the quarterback debate anymore.
Okay, we can go on to moving goalposts.
Let's go.
Because moved plenty of goalposts on the quarterback argument.
Okay. Let's go. Moving goal this week. I had some. I didn't pull anything, but I will just say
I have no bookmarks as far as Texas baseball goes.
You do or you don't?
I don't.
I wanted to start off with the
baseball
softball. Did Texas put out a softball highlight video
They
from the
put out
one
a
win?
post-game. It wasn't a mini movie. It was a post-game video of the win on Sunday.
What do you
A&M
mean by
put out
that?
one of those immediately post-game as well, and then they put out an additional mini movie, I think, on Monday.
Okay, so we'll see if a mini movie goes out. But okay,
I would say a mini movie is stupid.
I get it.
Don't do a mini movie for a series. I'm standing on my ground that you don't do a mini movie for a series loss, and I will be annoyed if Texas softball does it.
I just don't know the answers of if A&M or other schools do this. Like, had A&M won 2 games? So, like, do they do it following every series, and you just so happen to only win 1 game, so you're gonna focus all the highlights and attention on 1 game where you snap this 30-game winning streak, or was that special because, like you said, then I would disagree with it because you lost the series. You don't. Now, if you do something after every week, let's say Texas baseball, they have people that have that job. If they put together a highlight package from the weekend in College Station, there's no real highlights, right? So maybe you just do a highlight reel on the weekend, when you've got a guy that hits 4 home runs in his last 6 at-bats.
Yeah, I think an Aiden Robbins
yeah.
is fair. He had a great performance. A singular highlight of a player who had a great game, who could be a contender for Golden Spikes, is fair. But otherwise, there weren't many highlights to pull from a series loss against your rival, and I don't think Longhorn fans would respond to that well.
I need this segment because that last one, I'm still flustered by it. So let's keep going. So here's the deal. I didn't go pull bookmarks after that series, but if I wanted to, if I'd have had time today, I cannot imagine how many I would have found after that sweep last year. I cannot imagine how many would I have found leading into this game. I also can't imagine how many I'd have found if I'd have gone and seen what people were saying about Mike Early after that Texas series last year. And I'm talking about on this side of things.
Fan base, yeah.
I'm talking about on this side of things. So
that's one of my favorite bookmarks to pull, is from your own fan base when they get really over dramatic about something and it really pisses you off as far as just trusting the process goes.
There is a process, and you brought up Arch in that Athletic article, and it was a lot of Longhorns that were fed up with Arch's play early in, not blaming the O-line. They should have.
Longhorns I have booked about Arch Manning. I mean, there's a lot of other. The Sooners I booked was great because then Arch went and beat OU a couple weeks.
That was pretty funny. But to me, and you know how I was, by the way, even though I'm not 100% sold on Arch being great like everyone is, I think he's good. And I thought last year that everyone buried him way too prematurely. And I said he's going to start the season and struggle. And I said because they lost their whole offensive line. And I said, but as the year goes on, he's going to get better. And that's exactly what happened. Now, as far as these bookmarks and stuff, I cannot imagine how much stuff I could have found because there was so much talk out of Burnt Orange and out of the Longhorn Nation, and there was so much talk about Mike Early earlier this season. I remember they lost to UCLA like 10-2, and man, this side of the line, this side of the aisle, we're ready to move on from it. Let's move on after a year in a non-conference. They went into conference play with 1 loss. They went into this weekend series playing really good baseball, and now they've won. What is it? It's a sweep of Missouri. It's the last game against Georgia. It's 2 against Vandy, and it's 2-0 against Texas. They've won 8 out of 9 SEC games right now and are white hot. And again, there's a lot of people that would be eating a lot of crow in both jerseys that we cover, or both colors that we cover right now. There's burnt orange and maroon and white that would have to say, you know what? It doesn't mean that he's going to be a 5-time national champion coach, but you know what? We judge that thing way too prematurely. And I think a lot of people in both fan bases, obviously Texas is going to feel that way, but a lot of people in both fan bases really underestimated what this baseball team was capable of. There's half an SEC schedule left. They got to get things done, but they're definitely one of the surprise stories. So that's my bookmark, and the moving goalposts actually happened a lot on our side of the fan base, because now everybody's kind of going, oh man, this baseball team's great. This is really fun to watch. Can't wait to see what happens to them. And guess what? Welcome aboard. You deserve everybody gets to enjoying it, right? Because you defended Arch early, and then when he was beating A&M and playing well in the bowl game, they were all right there celebrating with you. All the people that said he sucked.
There's a couple particular Texas fan accounts that I'm like, I want to take away your fan card, and you shouldn't be allowed to cheer for this team anymore, based on the kind of shit you said about Arch early on.
For sure.
And it's irritating. And like, we can sit here and be critical of Marcel, and I know you don't want to he's your quarterback, you're going to defend him, but at the same time, it's like people who are overtly critical of him, once they like, and critical to a fault of just like saying stuff like Marcel's trash,
overboard,
shouldn't be playing. But
by the way, I want to say something. Our debate,
actual criticism that's like based in like logical things, that's not like saying like, he's trash, whatever. That makes sense. We can be critical of Arch, saying there's areas he needs to improve while still supporting him.
Can I say something too? You're right. And you're that's exactly right what you just said. And just to be clear, our debate just now was not, then there's the difference. It was not you saying that Marcel wasn't good. It was us comparing Marcel and Arch. I think they're going to be two of the, and Pate came in here the other day and we talked about, I mean, they're two of the top four. You throw in Chambliss, you throw in Stockton. There's a couple of transfer portal guys that you start discussing. But
people like to throw Mateer into that conversation.
Mateer should be. I'm not either, and I'm less convinced. I'm way more convinced on Arch than I am Mateer. Trust me, like infinitely more.
They're going to blame the thumb for the rest of time.
They are. And I wasn't big on him before the thumb. I thought, man, he should have thrown, you talk about interceptions, he should have thrown 3 against Michigan. They should have lost to Auburn. He made some bad plays in that game. And to me, I was like, I don't see it.
Get rocked by Texas.
Got rocked by Texas, and it wasn't because of the thumb. He was throwing, like, I just don't buy that. But I do think
his decision-making is why he got rocked by Texas.
He's too reckless. He's too reckless with the football. Now, with that said, I think those are your top 5, right? And I think Arch and Marcel are 2 of the top 4. But our debate was about the 2. So just for people wondering, because that got is about as contentious as you and I get, right? That was about the 2, and that was not about you being negative towards the QB. But I'll say this, Amanda, as we go.
Still pick Marcel over like most of the quarterbacks in the other than probably Gunnar Stockton, Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, most of the other quarterbacks in the SEC.
And honestly, Stockton's an interesting one for me because he's a dog and he's a winner. But I'm also like, okay, I would go Trinidad. I think Arch and Marcel are 2-3. I do. I'm just and then
I
Stockton,
Trinidad, Arch, Stockton, Marcel, Stockton, Marcel, pretty close.
So that's where your flip point. That's fine. I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. But with that said, I'll say this before we go here.
Lenore Sellers, you were high on him last year.
Hey, Lenore Sellers scares me. Like that dude is like tackling an NFL tailback on every play, and man, he's a weird one because he can look so bad throwing, and then when he does that game of Sellers and Marcel and the 2 halves, like it's still so crazy how well one was playing and how bad the other one was. And South Carolina had like 20 yards of offense in the second half, and Marcel had like 400. I've never been at a crazier game, but Sellers does scare me, and he might be that guy that went one way one year and then back again. So we'll see. Kendall Briles, I know that people don't like that name, and I know his stock in terms of like his reputation isn't what it was a few years ago when he got to Arkansas. But man, he had KJ Jefferson doing some pretty good things at Arkansas, and if he can get that out of Sellers, and he does a really good job with the run pass stuff. I'm glad you pointed him out because he is a scary one. He's the wild card to me. But anyway, I'm going to say this before we go. You said it. You're going to ride with your quarterback, and I may have, you just had me ride him, right off the cliff there a minute ago. But I'll say this. I did the same thing with Kellen Mond. I believed in his progression. A lot of Aggie fans disagreed with me throughout his whole career, and I believe in that progression. And I'll just say this, his senior year, and Marcel's got 2 more, by the way. I think a lot of people forget that because he redshirted. But
I think he'd go to the draft after next year.
He could, but I mean, you better have, obviously a lot of those things that we talk about have to be cleaned up. I do acknowledge and agree with that. But yeah, so quite possibly 2 more years. But I did this with Kellen, and Kellen's senior year, he took a massive jump, and I think you like the touchdown to interception ratio, so do I, but his TD to interception ratio, counting rushing touchdowns in 2020, was like 21-3, and A&M finished in the top 5. They won in year 6.
Quinn Ewers wasn't the best when it came to touchdown interception ratio. He was more prone to throwing interceptions than Arch was. He was pretty high up there as far as numbers goes. His benefit was the defense.
Yeah,
he had an insane defense. And I mean, Quinn Ewers went late, and I think that was partially a reason for it. He wasn't quite the quarterback that everybody thought he should be, but he showed up in some of the big moments, which is why Texas went 2 rounds into the playoffs.
All right, let's shut her down. I got dinner to get to, and I know you do too. That was a long one, but that was a good one. We had a lot to discuss. We had rivalries. We had this rivalry. We had the baseball rivalry. We got them all going on. So anyway, we'll do it next week. We'll kind of wrap up spring ball, maybe have some fun little superlatives coming out of spring, and we'll do all that. So I'm Billy.
And I'm Amanda.
And who's moved more goalposts this week, me or you? What?
That's you.
I know. Goodbye.